Okay. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay? Yes, I think I can. Great, brilliant. Well, yeah, thank you so much for letting me join your conference today. Yeah, really, it's a privilege for me to be part of this room, presenting to all of you, and yeah, have a huge amount of admiration for the work that you're all doing in your respective organizations. My name's Lloyd Hilton. I lead HG's AI team here in North America. And despite my British accent, I'm based here in New York, so I've just made the short journey over from Bryant Park this afternoon. Just a little bit of context on HG before I get on to topics around AI and healthcare. So HG, we are one of the world's largest software investors, a transatlantic technology and services investor. We have about 60 portfolio companies. The aggregate value of those companies is about 180 billion. And we're extremely proud investors in HHAeXchange, which is one of our most innovative and forward-thinking technology businesses. And personally, I've had the pleasure of working with HHA for the last sort of 5 or 6 years now, partnering on various initiatives. And so it's a real privilege to partner with the team here today. One of the really interesting things, I guess, about being a specialist software investor is we get to work with more than 50 companies who are all leaning into this AI platform shift at the same time. So more than 1,500 projects is the number that we've now seen across the HG portfolio, and we've seen more than 100 different AI products and features launched across those portfolio companies. So in many ways, we think of this as our sort of unique Gen AI laboratory. So we wanted to share just a few observations today in terms of what we're seeing in AI in general, but also what we think we might see in the future in healthcare, but in particular in home healthcare as well. The first thing to talk about, and I think Steve alluded to this, is just the incredible pace of change that we're seeing in AI at the moment. This is a chart we often show from a research organization called Meta. And what this is essentially showing on the y-axis here is the task duration for a human to complete a particular unit of work. What we're seeing going across the x-axis is essentially the leading AI models that have been released over the last few years. And what we're seeing here is this incredibly rapid pace of progress. So if you look back at 2024, models were capable of achieving a task that would take a human roughly sort of 5 or 6 minutes. So, a very quick Google search or maybe drafting a very quick email. Fast forward just a couple of years, models are now capable of fulfilling tasks that would take a human more than 10 hours of work. And in fact, this is things now like solving unique mathematical conjectures that haven't been solved by humans before. So we're seeing this incredibly rapid pace of acceleration in frontier models. If, like me, you're a bit more of a visual learner, and this is complex to interpret, a good way to think of this is in terms of the progress of image models. So this was a prompt I gave to an image model that was released in 2023, so just 3 years ago, to show me a gathering of home care leaders at HHAeXchange's customer conference in Times Square. And I don't think anyone in this room would be flattered by this model's efforts to represent the crowd in the room. I then tried the same prompt yesterday, and this is the very latest model that's been released by OpenAI just 2 days ago. And this is what AI models are now capable of producing. So you can see it's done a pretty amazing job of capturing the HHAeXchange logo. It's gone off, researched what that looks like on the internet, and you can see it's perfectly rendered some of the text here, and even got the curvature right on the Times Square billboards. So pretty incredible rate of progress, and that's just one category of foundation model that we're seeing. But what's really happened, I guess, in the last sort of 3 or 4 months is we've seen this incredible step forward somewhere around the new year with the latest release of models like Opus 4.5 and GPT 5.2. And suddenly around December, we had all of these leading figures saying AI has suddenly crossed this invisible threshold where it's gone from being somewhat useful at a handful of economically valuable tasks to now incredibly useful at really material pieces of work. And actually, we should have really predicted this. If you look really closely at this chart, what you'll see here is actually on the y-axis, what we have is a logarithmic scale. So each of those numbers is multiplying by 10 as you go up. And actually, a much better way to look at this is on a linear scale, where you can see that actually we've been on this incredibly rapid exponential trend. And what's really happened in the last few months is we've just got to the part of that trend where humans are really starting to notice a difference. Even in the last 3 or 4 months, that curve has got even steeper. So models were getting twice as effective every 7 months. They're now starting to self-improve. A lot of the algorithmic gains that are coming at the model layer are actually coming from models writing their own code to improve themselves. And that doubling time has now gone to just 4 months. So we're seeing this incredible exponential that is going right off the top of the page there as models improve. Now, I couldn't find a good visual metaphor to explain just that rapid pace of exponential, but this is probably the best I could come up with. And hopefully this will play. This is what it feels like roughly working at the frontier of AI at the moment. I promise no horses were farmed in the making of this video. This is, we believe it's AI. One of the areas where these models are getting extremely capable is in software development, and that's a time and a space that we spend a lot of time in. But I appreciate if you're not working in software development, it can be difficult to kind of appreciate just how capable these models now are. So as I was asked to present at this conference last week, I thought it'd be worth working with Claude Code to pull together a very quick demo. And so you can see here, this is what the Claude Code interface looks like. So Claude Code is one of the leading agentic software coding solutions. You essentially speak to a model, and that model will then go off and develop a load of code to produce your software solution. So you can see here, I put in my prompt, Claude, I need to present at the HHAeXchange customer conference next week. Can you please help me come up with a compelling demo? And I basically said, you think of the idea, you write the code, but in block capitals, make it good. And I also turned on this ultra think mode, which is a real mode in Claude Code that helps it solve particularly complex problems. This took about 15 minutes of back and forth iteration and prompting. And this is what Claude Code was able to come up with. So you can see here it's produced what looks like a relatively good, kind of fully functioning iPhone application. And you'll see it also came up with the care coordinator side of this equation as well. So as I start to play the video here, you'll see that care coordinator solution come up. Then what it also came up with was a voice demo to show a caregiver interacting with that application.
Just finished with Maria, 45-minute visit. Helped her with a shower and breakfast. Her BP was 140/90. She seemed lower energy than usual. Didn't want to do her stretches, kept saying she was tired. I also noticed some new bruising on her right forearm she couldn't explain. Wasn't there on Sunday. Want to flag both.
And you can see that I didn't actually ask Claude to do that. It went off and thought about that script itself and came up with something that was relatively close to reality, I would think. And has then produced a load of functionality in the caregiver coordinator application that allows them to track that escalation and then actually send a follow-up or a clinical follow-up to help that particular patient in need. So I would stress this is just a demo and this is just a prototype, and actually where most of the work in software engineering goes at the moment is in getting things really production ready and scalable, but hopefully gives a sense of just what is now capable with these software engineering tools. And if we look at where this is going, I think Paul mentioned this earlier, and HHA are one of our leading companies in this respect. Today, about 80% of code is capable of being written by AI. And there's been an incredible amount of work that's gone into that at HHA to really drive that efficiency and hopefully pass on that efficiency to all of you as customers. But we think towards the end of 2026, actually 100% of code might be written by AI as those models keep improving. And kind of moving into 2027, a lot of the broader activity around software engineering might be possible to be done by AI, and in fact, perhaps 100% of software engineering tasks done by AI, which for HHA and for our software organizations allows us to then spend more time with customers thinking deeply about the problems that we're actually trying to solve rather than hand-cranking code solutions. And so we're really looking forward to that world. you could take a pessimistic view and say, well, if software engineering is solved, what's going to happen to the 27 million software engineers that currently exist in the world? What we actually see in the portfolio is we're seeing an increase in hiring of those software engineering people, essentially because there is just so much software to build. And so we think actually what we're heading towards is more a space of software abundance. There are so many problems in the world that require a software solution to solve them. And actually, we think we're just going to see this dramatic acceleration in the quality of software that's produced. And I think this principle of abundance is something that we can apply to a lot of spaces. And actually, one of the things that I'm particularly excited about, and I know the industry as a whole is particularly excited about, is this principle of healthcare abundance through AI and scientific research. This is Dario Amodei. Dario Amodei is the CEO of Anthropic, one of the leading foundation model labs. He has a deep background in neuroscience and medical research, and one of the things he talks about a lot is this progress that can really be driven to improve the quality of human life through AI. And that is a key part of what he is trying to drive with Anthropic, and one of the really promising things that I think can come out of this AI platform shift and this revolution. And actually, we're already starting to see some really compelling examples of this happening today. So a company that we work with a lot at HG that some of you may know is Hippocratic AI. So this company was founded roughly about 3 years ago. And what they're essentially doing is building generative AI voice agents that are highly trained on clinical calls and can actually make outbound calls to patients that clinicians otherwise wouldn't have the time to make themselves. So this was just one case study that they shared with us recently. During a heat wave in New York, they contacted more than 16,000 patients that clinicians would never have time to contact, but these voice agents are infinitely scalable, can make as many phone calls as you like. And actually, they found that 10% of those members needed relatively urgent medical treatment to be moved to cooling centers or otherwise delivered care. And the patient rating there for sort of safety and empathy was a 9 out of 10. So really, these patients are getting a huge amount of value, and we're serving parts of the population that otherwise would never have had that healthcare in the first place. Another example that we see as well from Abridge, this is a clinical note-taker solution, so essentially allows doctors and nurses to dictate what they're seeing when they're dealing with patients and record those notes. This is also driving huge benefits for the clinicians that are delivering care in the community. So there was a recent study from Yale University that showed that people using Abridge, those clinicians using Abridge, were seeing roughly a 20% decline in burnout versus those who weren't using that solution. So I guess that gives them much more time that they can spend with patients, delivering the care that they are so qualified to deliver, rather than spending time on admin and that burden of administration that comes with being a healthcare professional. And the final example that was in the news recently, which I thought was super interesting, does anyone know who or which animal this is? No guesses. Not Scooby-Doo. This is an Australian Staffordshire Bull Terrier, Rosie. So Rosie was in the news recently. Rosie, very unfortunately, was diagnosed with terminal cancer at the age of just eight years old. Rosie's owner, though, took matters into his own hands, and what he did was sequence the genome of Rosie's tumor cells to understand the particular mutation that Rosie had from that cancer. This is something that 10 years ago would have cost millions or even tens of millions of dollars, and actually is now pretty accessible for just a few $100s. He then used ChatGPT to understand the particular mutations in that cancer, and then develop, using a program called AlphaFold, a very targeted mRNA vaccine that could actually treat that particular mutation. He was able to get that vaccine produced, and again, this was just a few $100s. And then finally, injected that vaccine into Rosie's tumors and was able to shrink the tumor by more than 75%. And Rosie is back now walking 3 times a day and expected to live several years longer. So I think this is one incredible example of the developments in AI and scientific research coming together to really make an impact for people's lives. And I think this principle of sort of radically personalized medicine is also something that's starting to make its way more broadly into the healthcare sphere. So I wanted to share just a few quick thoughts on what this might mean for home healthcare abundance and what that might look like. And of course, this is just my views. This is from conversations with Paul and JC and Steve and others. This is absolutely not a reveal of the HHA roadmap. Just to be clear, this is my own personal views. But just 3 reflections on how that principle of abundance and AI can really enable better outcomes in the home healthcare system. The first, I think, is this principle of a caregiver companion, a kind of always-on, ambient companion that helps to coach caregivers, helps to remind them, and also has this infinite memory that never forgets any interaction that they've had with their patient, so that it's capturing all of that rich information on how they're feeling, on any issues they might have, and tracking that over time to better predict the trajectory of those patients in the home healthcare setting. So that voice agent that we saw earlier, I'm sure is something that is emerging very quickly and under development, but having that as an always-on companion that truly helps caregivers deliver better care to patients is something that I personally see as a really exciting growth vector in home care. The second, of course, is that exact same companion but for care coordinators. So a lot of our companies now have background agents that are running and completing a lot of activities on their behalf, which is essentially freeing them up to do way more work. In the same way that Claude Code is able to produce whole features and components of software, we think that a care coordinator companion could do things like scheduling tasks, like automatically processing authorizations, like dealing with billing issues, like dealing with communication, freeing up those coordinators to have more time to spend on complex relationship management, judgment calls, and hard conversations that I'm sure a lot of your people have to deal with day to day. And the final piece I think is really interesting, and I think this is generally where healthcare is going longer term, is this principle of extreme personalization. Whereas today, I think a lot of the care that's delivered is based on trends across broad cohorts of the population. I think if we can start to capture more detailed, more rich context about an individual's needs, their personal background and their personal trajectory, I think we'll get to this world where every patient in a population gets deeply personalized care. I think that has huge implications for delivering more efficient care, but also delivering better care for members in a population. So I think there's a huge number of super exciting opportunities in the home healthcare space, and we are really excited about partnering with HHA to try and bring some of these to life with our AI team in the coming months. And I know there's a super exciting roadmap that's coming out from HHA that will start to deliver on some of this promise that AI is able to deliver to the population. Maybe just one more thought to leave you with, and I think this is ultimately where all of this goes, is from a very well-known scientist, Ray Kurzweil. So Ray Kurzweil is an American inventor, computer scientist, kind of highly decorated. One of the really interesting things about Ray Kurzweil is he's made a number of very bold predictions over the course of his life. And actually, I think his success rate at the moment is about 89% correct across those bold predictions. His latest bold prediction is that all of these incredible breakthroughs together are going to lead to what we'll call longevity escape velocity. So essentially this principle that for every additional year that we live, scientific advances in medicine will add another year to the human lifespan, and so that we might get to this space of actually getting to no deaths from aging and infinite lifespan in the population. Now, I don't know about everyone else in the room, that is a terrifying prospect for me to live forever, but that is an incredible thought that we could actually be starting to expand the human lifespan indefinitely. And if that feels far-fetched, the thing I would point you back to and the thing that I would keep in mind is just that incredible rate of exponential progress that we're starting to see, and that steep trajectory that AI is driving, combined with medical advances. I really do think there is a chance that prediction will start to come true in the coming years. So really an incredible time to be working in healthcare, in home healthcare, and in AI. And again, a huge admiration for everyone in this room for really driving that forward at the frontier. And we are super excited to partner with HHAeXchange to start to bring some of that AI capability into your businesses to make life better, ultimately, for those patients in the population. Thank you very much.